All right, go.
Well, welcome to the February 16th, 2021 session of TangerineSDR and Hampshire Personal Space Weather Station Technical Group. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week I've been working on teaching myself some more about CRC information and something I need to do for a project with Scotty. So I want to be sure I'm versed on that. I knew generally how it worked, but I'm reading a lot about details. I did bake my P&I board tonight. And right now outside we have minus 14°C. So it's a little chilly tonight. This is the coldest day of the winter so far tonight. But the magnetometer board that I have outside is cranking along just fine. I have no I²C errors, so I'm happy with that. Otherwise, I've been doing some programming stuff and cleaning up and a few things like that. So next on the list, we have Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thank you very much, Dave. It's been a busy week. I've been working with Bill Engelke and Phil on a proposal, and we are today is the abstract deadline for the Hampshire workshop, and the current count is right, we got 33 responses. There's probably about 30 abstracts in there, so that's not terrible. And I don't think that includes all of them from this group that we talked about last week. So I'm pretty happy with that. So now just have to get everything put together.
How does that compare with last year?
I don't really know. I'm not sure, but I think it's on par.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's worse. I think it's at least as good. The W2NF back to net.
Fine business. Next on the list, we have Dev, KC3 PVE. Go ahead, Dev.
Good evening, everyone. This has been a regular week. I had few tasks of trying to train neural network on the data that I have been processing, but I'm stuck in understanding the code. So I have not met my own deadlines. So I'm not feeling as much good as I would have liked to. Thank you.
Well, you'll get it. So, and next on the list, we have Ben Douglas. Go ahead, Ben.
Hello, everybody. It's been, I guess, it's been a pretty busy, I think, 2 weeks since I was last here. But I've gotten some progress done with John on taking the grape off of dependency on FLDigi. So we're kind of in testing of what I've created with that. And yeah, that's where we're at.
Question, did you get your call sign yet?
I did not, no.
Okay. You were wondering about it the last time you were here.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Well, please let us know when you get it.
Yeah, I'm super busy right now, so I'm not working on it at the moment, but
okay.
I will definitely let you guys know.
Next on the list, we have Tom, KJ6MKI. Tom, go ahead.
Hi, Tom out here in the Bay Area. I'm wearing this parka, but actually we've had unusually warm weather today. It was 65 out. So I was just checking in to see how you guys are surviving all this. I didn't expect most of you to have power, but it's all right here in paradise. I was just talking with Rob, AI6VN this morning. He's the guy that's doing Whisper Daemon and working with VK6JJ on the Whisper tracking. And among our group, our Monday morning coffee clutch, there's a lot of interest in the Tangerine project and how it's coming, and particularly the dual receiver component. And as long as it's, the big requirement was to have it in phase and perfectly synchronized for doing our own atmospheric studies. Glenn, N6GN, Glenn Elmore, who you must know, has devised an amazing display that tracks the Doppler shift in IQ presentation real time. So you can watch the HF propagation change. And we're talking now about, I'm in real time. It's an amazing display. And we're talking about building 3 or 4 axis antennas so we can track polarization and monitor IQ in that way. And the discussion eventually wound up with, well, you know, it sounds like Tangerine. Those guys may know something we don't, and we can hardly wait to get one. So that I'm just a fly on the wall right at the moment, but you know, I'm maintaining some Whisper functions here and using Kiwis and stuff, and waiting for the weather to improve a little bit. I've got a lot of antenna work to do, and but I just wanted to check in and say hello to everybody, and I'm really interested in hearing more about the Tangerine. That's about it. Thanks.
Well, fine business. And next on the list, we have Bill, AB4EJ. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, thanks, Dave. Good evening to you and good evening to the net. I've been mostly tinkering around with the grape and getting it to where it will store spectrum information as opposed to FL Digi. And I've got it running where I've got it doing 2 things at once. I'm going to show you the screen on this. I can't do a screenshot because the Pi won't work very well on Zoom, but I'll move the camera over there. I've got it running to where it will produce an 8 kilohertz wide spectrum overview and also a 10 hertz wide close in so that you can see what is going on with the Doppler shift. And I've got both of those being separately stored in digital RF. Here, let's show you what it looks like here. Let me see. Yeah, okay. That's live there. That's what we've got as far as the Doppler shift here. And the top one is the overview, which is 8 kilohertz wide, and the bottom one is about 10 hertz wide, so you can see where you get your data. And so the challenge that I'm having is there are some assumptions made in the digital RF code about how you store this data, which are not exactly compatible with gnuradio. Specifically, if you want to work with multi-channel data in digital RF, it assumes that you'll store everything together at once, but you can't really do that using gnuradio because you got 2 separate data blocks and you can't store multiple channels in a single block. And the other complexity of it is that I have to run these different things at different data acquisition rates because the close-in data, which, you know, the 10 hertz wide has to be decimated. And so the sample rate you're storing in digital RF is about 1/10 of what it is. Oh, I found out also, John, you'll be interested in this, that USB sound chip that we're using, it won't run faster than 33 kilohertz. 33 kilosamples per second is the fastest it'll go. But that's all right, because all I need is 8 anyway. So I cut it down to 8 kilohertz and then put a filter, a low-pass filter, so that any high-frequency artifacts are not folded back in. And then I store that, and I have to do an additional decimation if I want to store them both. But anyway, I'm probably going to have to work with MIT a little bit to find out why those digital tools like gr-hpsdr are not capable of handling. If you store channel 1 as a separate file, it can't handle it. So anyway, we're making slow but sure progress on that. So anyway, back to net.
Fine business, Bill. Next on the list is Dave H. Go ahead, Dave.
Hi. Yeah, Dave, I'm W6OQ out in Los Angeles. I'm not sure why I'm here at this point. I was interested in at the Tapper conference last fall. I saw a lot of stuff on the ham sci and whatever. And then recently it came back around again to my attention. So I signed up for the email list on this. And today said you're going to do a Zoom call. So I thought I'd drop in and see what's happening. Okay,
Well,
that's it for me.
you're welcome. And if you find an interesting part, please come back and please help out if you find something you're able to work on. Welcome. And next on the list, we have Dave Witten, KD0EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
Hello. I'm not doing anything very earth-shattering at the moment. I got this other this Fluxgate magnetometer kit from this guy in Alaska, just to see how it works, and I'm doing some magnetometer-ish things, but otherwise nothing I want to report.
I will say, Dave told me he attended the magnetometer talk last week. Is that right?
It was a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeoman and I both did, I think.
Okay. Well, fine business. Next on the list, we have Dave McGaw, N1HAC, right?
That's correct. Hello, everyone. Yeah, very busy these days. I've got a sounding rocket that's finally started to move forward, hoping to launch it, what is it, April, I think, which is a VLF propagation experiment, picking up NAA in particular out of Cutler, Maine, flying from Wallops. But that's going to take a fair amount of attention over the next couple of months, but also working on ground VLF rather, and various other endeavors, and playing with various SDRs. Looking forward to ours. Back to net.
Sounds good. Okay, next on the list is Gary, AF8A. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Just standing by, copying things, and just trying to keep current. Back to net.
Fine business. And next on the list is James, KG4DSG. Go ahead, James.
You're muted.
Mike. Still muted. There you go.
Got it now. I'm listening in, taking notes, trying to figure out why this Ryzen tower that's sitting next to my desk decided to eat itself in the last 2 days. Suspiciously died after a BIOS update. I think it's toast, but that's my problem. Back to net.
Well, good luck with that. Next on the list is Jim, K4BSE. Go ahead, Jim. There you go. Well, your mic muted is off, but I can't hear you. Well, I'm going to go on down the list while he's figuring that out. Next on the list is John, N8OBJ. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, good evening, everybody on the net. Spent the week last week working on the compression program to take a Raspbian Raspberry Pi SD card image and compress it to its smallest size. I was able to compress a 32 gig image down to 12 gig, which was about the size of what was used on the card, and discovered the hard way that you cannot upload a 12 gig image to GitHub. It pukes. Also, the Google Drive, I think, has a 10 gig limit as well. So we're gonna have to figure something out on that, but I did get it to work. I was able to take a 32 gig card that was running my system, plug it in on my iMac, make a image of that of the 32 gig file, ran it through the Perl script, came up with a 12 gig image, put that into Etcha, reburn a 32 gig card with the 12 gig image, booted on a Raspberry Pi, and expand the file system back to 32 gig, and came back to our starter from everything was working. So the whole path works. So got that done and working. I put up all of the Perl script and screenshots and stuff like that are up on the PSWS documentation GitHub directory under the Great directory. So that's my fun for this week. Back to net.
Well, fine business. Okay, next on the list is Jonathan, KC3EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. I really haven't been working on much except for trying to learn LaTeX a little bit better. I'm currently trying to figure out how to define pages, page count, headers and footers, just the basics for a non-technical project that I'm working on. Other than that, I'm excited because I start my new job next week. And that's all I have to report. Back to the net.
Well, fine business, Jonathan, and good luck with your job. Next on the list is Jules, K2KGJ. Go ahead, Jules.
Yes, hello to the list and good President's Day to everybody. Did manage to get further on Hillman's next magnetometer, waiting for a couple of PVC parts to come in to finish that up. I did not get a chance to do the timing tests on the I2C multiplexer that Dave and I are playing with, but I'm going to see if I can do that this week. Other than that, that's about it. Just waiting for the next storm to pass. Back to net.
Fine business. And next on the list is Khan Tran and KE8QWB. Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I got my call sign. That's pretty cool. I'm still trying to get used to it. I'm still trying to learn radio. So that's what I've been doing on top of my schoolwork. So but that's about it. Back to you.
Well, fine business. And next on the list is Michael, AAK. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you. Greetings to everyone on the conference. Back to you, Dave.
Very good. And next is Rob Robinette. Rob, I want to tell you, I have been slowly stepping through your Kiwi Whisper receiver, and I've got all the individual parts working. Now I just got to get them all working together.
Okay, if I can be of help, let me know.
Sure.
Yes. Okay. So as Tom mentioned, we've been discussing antenna systems, receive systems, and we're getting some very interesting results. I don't know if Gwen is going to talk to you, Nathaniel, about making a presentation about some of the work we've been doing. He's been using a adjustable active antenna to do ground conductivity measurements by looking for nulls off of at various positions. So he created a servo-driven vertical active dipole, and he can he adjusts it over a 2-hour period and gets some shows where you get the nulls, and that tells you from that you can derive ground conductivity measurements. So it's a really extraordinary work. You can also use that technique to do some nulling. A surprising amount of local RFI nulling can be sometimes achieved through adjustment of the position of the antenna. Amazing, you can get 30 dB of null from your null out those little transformers in your neighbor's house. So anyway, there's a bunch of that work, but we're considering how to extend that into two-dimensional, to have a cross polarized antennas and synthesize polarization in the receive system. And I think, of course, something like an Apache or a Flex can do the dual synchronous input. And you can synthesize receive patterns used in the digital domain. But part of the systems we're putting together are they're portable and they float. They're battery powered and they're completely symmetrical and balanced systems. So you can't stick a Flex up in the middle of your 2-meter long active dipole. So we're looking for such a device. The SDR Play does have a dual input device, but it's proprietary drivers. It's all the processing ends up being done, I think, up in the host computer. So you'd have to stick a giant Intel i7 up there at the middle of your dipole. So ideally, we're hoping that the Tangerine, and I don't know the status of the Tangerine project, but we're hoping that the Tangerine project might provide us with a dual input receiver that we could use in these active dipole experiments to extend them. But some of that, I think you'll see if Gwen's presentation is on its way. You'll see a discussion at least of the work we've done to date with the single dipole receiver and a Kiwi. We're using a Kiwi as a receive device for that. But there's some startling stuff going on. And as Tom mentioned, we were watching live the IQ pattern of WWV versus CHU, and that was you can just see the ionosphere bounce up and down and go this way and that way in real time. It's quite it's a different view of what we were shown earlier. I forget who showed that yet. Anyway, I'm deep into working on, there's been a new release of JTX 3.0, which includes new modulation techniques and packet formats for whisper packets. And the new modulation technique is said to gain something like 1.5 or 2 dB almost of improved signal noise sensitivity for at any packet length. But they've also, Joe Taylor's defined additional packet lengths of 5 minutes, 15 and 30-minute packet lengths. He thinks they're only going to be useful for low frequency whisper reception. I think they might be useful in other bands, certainly unlikely in the shortwave band, but who knows, maybe they could be useful at VHF and UHF. So I'm deep in working on extending my whisper daemon code to support those different packet lengths and modulation decodings, as well as interfacing it to, well, in this case, I'm using the SDR Play, but I'm hoping that is there still on the list? Is there a project to put a SOAP driver to the TangerineSDR? Because that's the interface I'm Whisper Daemon is talking to now, and that will allow me to do all of those packet decodes that with many different receivers. So anyway, that's a question. It may have gotten buried there at the end, but is there a SOAP driver possible in the works for the Tangerine? And what is the status of Tangerine? I don't even know where the hardware is.
The next person on the list is the one to answer those questions.
Good. Hi, Scotty.
So, are you finished with yours?
I've taken more than my allotted time here. I'm sorry.
Okay. So next on the list is Scotty, WA2 DFI. Go ahead, Scotty.
Okay, well, thanks, Dave. And yeah, this week we, in case people didn't know, we made some presentations on at Hamcation, this virtual Hamcation this week. And so John Ackerman and I and Michelle Thompson got together and did a Tapper ORI combined presentation. We had a 55-minute slot. So we gave a quick overview of the Tangerine, and John gave an update on the clock module. And I've been working with John Ackerman on the clock module. We have the pinout pretty much nailed down. Had a last minute thought that he might want to change the synthesizer chip, but come to find out that the new chip really doesn't bias anything that the old chip didn't, and it costs about 50% more. So I think we're going to stick with the old one. We thought maybe we get better jitter performance out of the newer chip, and it would be worth it, something like 50% better. But it turns out there's some real restrictions in what ratios you can pick to get that kind of jitter performance, and we didn't want to be limited by that. So I think John's going to stick with the old one. So anyway, we got the pinout pretty much nailed down, and I got the pinout for the Raspberry Pi nailed down, talking to John, the other John. And yeah, and so really the only one left is whatever leftover IO goes to the leaf connector. And I'm just about done. I got all the clocks assigned and went through it, checked all of those, and I got to finish doing the IO assignments, and then a lot of checking and checking again. And then I'm going to take my FPGA model and add the new pinouts to it and make sure that I didn't do anything stupid like hook a pin up to a place that the FPGA won't let you drive. And meanwhile, the CAD guy is already working on the symbols for the CAD decals for the big parts that we have, the non-standard parts. And then I'm looking for next week or so to be going into CAD. And so your question was, when will we have it? I've got my new goal now is to actually have physical boards in a set working by hand invention. So, and we'll try to, maybe we'll be able to beat that, maybe not. And the problem is we might have actual physical boards, but we have to have them actually running some code. So it's cool to hold up a board and say, yeah, here it is, but unless you can actually load things into it and make it do something. So we got a long way to go to get there with lots of pieces that have to be debugged, but the clock module is looking pretty good. So I think at this point, in fact, maybe by the end of next week, we'll have layouts for the boards, placements, because that was one of my requirements, is that I have to have the placements done for all three boards before we can go build anything, because we want to make sure that they plug together. Well, we've already got the RF module done. So we just have to make sure we can squeeze the clock module into something reasonable size, and make sure we get the connectors placed on the data engine properly for the clock module and for the leaf. And so it's progressing along. Back over to you, Dave.
Fine business. And next on the list,
You realize that the Hamvention is canceled this year. It's not till May 2022. Is that your date?
Yeah, that's it. Sure. Well, okay.
That's what he was doing.
By the date that Hamvention would have been if it was going to be on. Yeah, I realize it's canceled, but the date still is hanging in the air there. So.
Well, next on the list, we have Stephen, W2WF. Go ahead.
Yeah, hello. I'm just attending. I'm a new ham, and I was forwarded this invitation to attend this meeting. So I did. My interests are in solar physics, and yeah, anything that is interesting, and this project seems to be interesting. So I'm just waiting to find out more.
Welcome, and please come back if you find it interesting. And so next on the list, we already did Tom, but now it's Tom McDermott.
Okay, bringing up the rear as usual. Let's see, this week I got the first request to port OpenHPSDR to gnuradio 3.9. And I think it's a bit premature. The tool set's not quite ready for prime time, I think, on 3.9. reading through the mailing list, there's a few little buggy boos. I think the gnuradio package itself is stable. The porting tools are perhaps not quite ready yet. Spent a little time with Bill on the grape receiver PSP code, and Bill seems happy about that. And a couple of other things going on. I've got the dynamic DNS auto updater and OpenVPN working on the server. So making progress in bits and pieces. That's about it. Back to the group.
Fine business. And last we have Armchair Merc. Please go ahead.
Oh gosh, this is my first time here. I'm interested in different sciences, and I hardly know anything about this effort, but the idea of collecting and sharing science-based data seems interesting to me.
Well, welcome. And if you find it interesting, please come back.
Also, this is the first Zoom meeting I've ever attended.
Oh, very good. Well, at this point, we've gone through the list. I don't think I've missed anybody else, I hope. And so this is a high for attendance, I think, 23. And I want to make it open for general discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that I think both Tom and I are going to be giving talks at TechCon in a couple of weeks. It's on February 27th. Is that right? That you have that, Tom, Saturday?
Yeah, I've got Saturday. I don't know what our time slots are. I think they're working on that.
And Nathaniel, why don't you plug HamSci?
At HamCom on February 27th?
Yes.
It's called TechCon. So West Central Florida section, kind of like a mini DCC.
No, I knew yours was TechCon, but I also wanted Nathaniel to plug his.
Yeah. HamSci.
HamSci. And so give the dates.
Yes, so the dates for the HamSci workshop are March 19th and 20th. And abstracts are officially due today, but if you, we are having a soft close to the abstract deadline. So if you still want to present, you can still slide your abstract in this week.
What time zone?
It will be considered for the program.
What
that?
time zone?
We're being very flexible with it. You're already on the hook for a presentation. So whether I get an abstract for you or not, you're going on the program.
So in other words, if I don't give an abstract, then you're going to tell me what I'm going to talk about.
That's right.
So agreeable.
That's right.
Nathaniel, that might be smart.
That gives me incentive.
There you go. Yeah. And then the plan is this Friday, Dev, Christina, and I are going to sit down and look at what we got and try to fit everything into the schedule grid.
So you said you had 33 papers, so presenters?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, how many slots are there?
20.
About 20 maybe. Well, we have both the oral presentations and we have the eye posters this year too. So we'll make it work. The structure of the workshop is going to be Friday is going to be all oral presentations. Saturday morning, we're going to have invited tutorials. So we have my advisor from the SuperDarn community. He's going to give a talk on mid-latitude ionospheric science. We have Joe Dzekovic, K1YOW. He's going to represent the amateur community, and he's going to talk about studying sporadic E and its connection with weather systems using amateur radio data. After the invited talks, then we're going to have an experiment co-design session, which we're still working on that idea a little bit, but I'm working on that with Christina and Steve Serwin, and that's supposed to be a very interactive session.
What's that again?
What's
Nathaniel? It's a design session.
An experiment co-design session. So the idea is we'd like to have another large scale type of experiment. And kind of like we had the solar eclipse QSO party a couple years ago, and then they had the festival frequency measurements. We'd like to run again some sort of large scale experiment, but we'd like to get input from a number of people on different ideas for that. So the experiment code design session is going to be a session where people can give their ideas for what they think would work or what they think would not work, and we can try and come up with some idea of something interesting to do on a large scale.
Are you looking
then,
for pre-recorded sessions or live on Friday?
I prefer live.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to do pre-recorded, if you really want to do it, we could do that, but I prefer live.
Okay, well that works. Just whatever you prefer.
Yeah, I'd prefer live. I think it adds a little bit more liveliness to it, because you know that you're
Especially
on the spot.
And
What's
you
that?
mess up and you lose your train of thought, and or like in one case it happened to me, all the pictures disappeared off my slides.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
That would not be good. It was not good.
But even the pre-recorded, you can have problems too, because you get those files, and then sometimes some of them are corrupt, or nothing's perfect. So I figure the reason I like the live is I feel like with the pre-recorded, it's very similar to watching things on YouTube. I guess you do have the person there to answer the questions afterward, but I think that the live adds an extra element to it. And then Saturday afternoon, we are looking to have an iPoster session. So during the AGU conference, they had these virtual posters, and I can bring up an example of mine. Let's see here. So if I go to just move this off to the side here for a minute. So with the iPosters, it's a different format of presentation.
And these are short, right? Like 10 minutes?
It's actually going to be different than that even. I'll search for Dev's poster. Dev, I'll be on there too. Rizal. Now I think there's Dev's poster. View poster. I think you don't need a password to view this. So I'm going to put this in the chat.
It looks like a poster.
It does look like a poster. Okay.
It is a poster.
It is a poster, yes. So the idea is that it'd be a virtual system of actually giving posters. Now, the nice thing about these posters is that you can click on that link, and then you get to this poster, and you click on any of these, and the column expands.
Oh.
Okay. And with some of these, you can even embed little videos. So here's a movie Dev made of the chirp sounder.
And so now everybody can play the video or zoom in or whatever all independently as they look at the poster, right?
Right. So you can do it on your schedule.
Yeah.
Now, in a regular poster hall, what would happen is you'd all be standing around in a big giant room. And when you say how big and how giant, AGU poster session. This size room, it's actually bigger than that. So everyone's milling around here. At 3 p.m. they serve beer and coffee. And so everyone's, having refreshments, and you go up and you say, oh, that looks interesting. And you go chat with that particular person. And it's really nice because instead of it being that oral presentation where it's just them to you, you actually get to have a dialogue. So it's actually useful for both the person who's giving the presentation, as well as the people who are watching the presentation. So I really like poster sessions because they're extremely interactive. Now, the challenge, of course, is how do you get some sort of interactive activity like this in a virtual environment? Like Zoom works very well for these oral presentations, but trying to make it work for this is a little bit more challenging. So I've been thinking about this a little bit, and I watched what AGU did with these iPosters, and I think what we can do for the Saturday afternoon session is I think we can assign a number of people. I'm hoping that we can assign a number of people these iPosters. And then at the beginning of the session, we'll have, instead of a webinar, we'll have a Zoom large meeting. And we will have each person who's giving a poster, they get maybe 3 minutes to advertise their poster. Okay. So they don't really get to tell you everything about it. It'd basically be like Dev would get up, he'd say, "Hi, my name's Dev Joshi. I did a poster on making oblique ionograms with the Edis USRP and uHaviernen software." And he maybe says one more thing and that's it. And so that way, at least everyone gets to hear all the different titles of the poster, and maybe they get to see a flash of like one figure from them. Then after that, I'll set up breakout rooms in the large meeting, so that what you can do is people can go from room to room within the Zoom, and we'll cluster similar posters together. So maybe breakout room 1 will have like 5 posters of a similar title. Breakout room 2 will have maybe 5 posters of a different topic, and so that way people can choose which room they want to go to, and then people can take turns sharing their posters within that room, asking questions and dialoguing.
And people can hop around, right? Like they can change rooms.
Yeah, people can hop around, you can change rooms, and I'll probably even set up a couple empty rooms, so that, let's say, someone comes up to you and they're like, "I want to talk to you for a little bit about some feature for the TangerineSDR." You can hop over to your own private breakout room with them, have your little side conversation, and then come back to the main session.
So you'd have one breakout room for each poster, and then you'd have a breakout room for each group of posters.
Yeah, I'd probably do like, I'd initially group a number of posters together in a single room. And the reason I'd say that is when we were at AGU, virtual AGU this year, we tried doing one poster per virtual room, and that didn't work out very well, because what happened was you ended up with a whole bunch of people who had their posters just standing alone in their room and no one talking to them. So if we do maybe, 5 to 8 posters that are similar in a room, that's enough to get people started. And then we leave a certain number of empty breakout rooms that if people want to have a side conversation, they can do so.
Well, if you can group them by similar topics, then you might say, "Oh, I'm interested in sporadic E." So you might have 2 or 3 of those, and that way you don't get isolated into just shuffled off into one room.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
How are you going to manage all those breakout rooms, though? That's going to be difficult.
Well, so we'll have a couple. I think our administrative assistant, Lori McCoy, she's going to hang out in the main room during this session. And so she'll be able to help direct traffic. And then the way you should be able to do it, we can actually test it now a little bit. Zoom is supposed to have the ability that you can choose your own breakout room. So here, I just opened 20 breakout rooms. And so some people, you can see on your system, you should be able to choose which room you want to go to. So we can have it.
Where is that going to be shown? The breakout rooms?
Yeah, in the breakout rooms.
There's an
icon below.
Oh, wow. Okay. Then you could just go click and you're there.
Yeah, and I think now, and again, maybe we can play around with this later, but I think if someone goes to one of those breakout rooms, I think you can see who's in each breakout room.
Yeah.
So then if you see So like I see Dave just went to room 16.
All right, Scotty, go to room 3. I need to ask you a question.
Scotty just jumped to room 16 as well. Now, can people who are not hosts, can you see what rooms the other people are in?
Yeah, I can see the rooms. I'm having trouble figuring out how to get into them.
You just click on join.
Yeah, is there a little join?
Join, okay.
And then your meeting will go away, but then eventually you can say, click on leave break room or breakout room, and it gets you back to this point. And
Okay,
yes,
I'm looking for a join icon.
It's not an icon.
It's off
over.
to the. It's on to the right.
Yep.
I can.
There you go. When you mouse over the number, you see join. Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. It's probably different on different operating systems too.
Yeah, my Windows operating system has a join hyperlink next to room 1 or room N. And yes, you can actually see who is active in particular rooms. And furthermore, you can see who's left that room. So, back to Nat.
Yeah.
I don't see the icon.
For those who know Eric from QSO today, he used this concept last year in his virtual Hamfest.
He used that concept, and how did that work?
Well, I was at it last year. It wasn't too bad. Yours is a little more integrated and a little more complex, but you both basically have the same idea. It's all virtual. You can go to different rooms. You can talk to different vendors. Not in this case, but in Eric's case, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I presented at Eric's thing last year too. And it was really cool. He had a nice, really fancy platform. I'm just working with essentially the tools that I have here. But I think that this will be really nice because I really want to have some sort of an interactive part of the HamSci workshop. I don't want everything just to be oral presentations. Yeah. And I think this would give us the ability to do that even with a large number of people. Because I think I'm able to set up to 50 rooms, and the large meeting has a capacity of up to 1,000 people. So it could get a little complicated, but I think it might work too. And maybe in the main room, we have like a PowerPoint up that says what the different topics of the different rooms are.
We had some helpers to direct traffic if people got confused. So we had some admin people on the side helping out.
Yeah, we definitely need that. I have some students I could probably recruit to have help me with that.
Great concept.
Nathaniel, could you stop sharing your screen for a moment, please?
Sure.
Okay. It's an icon on the right side.
Yeah, I have a little join button.
I'm not logged into Zoom. Perhaps that's the difference.
Yeah, I think you have to actually have the Zoom client on your system, and not you need to make sure you have like the latest version of the Zoom client, because old versions don't have that feature. And I think you have to not use like the web client. I think you have to actually use the installed client.
Yeah, I'm using it installed on Ubuntu, but I'm not logged into my Zoom account.
Okay. I don't know how well it works on the Linux versions.
Okay, thank you.
So that is a problem. I don't know that it's fully compatible with every operating system, and that could be problematic.
Well, it's doing fine on my Mac, and it's an old Mac, High Sierra. It's probably 5 years old, so it's doing well.
That's good. It'll be interesting to hear from the Linux people. Because, I mean, I know very well you don't want to annoy the Linux people.
So
yes, it doesn't seem
this is what is happening. When I try to join a breakout room, like first time I click join, I get signed out of the Zoom. Okay.
You got signed out
of the Zoom.
That's not good.
and I have to sign again, and then I try to join, then I can join. So it takes me.
But you were able to get in.
So okay, I was able to get in, but in the second attempt. In the first attempt, I was logged out of the Zoom. I'm saying.
Well, at least
if
so
it
it's buggy. So they are supporting it. It's just buggy.
Hey, Dev, I don't know what OS you're using, but over here also, the Zoom meeting that we're seeing right now with all the participants seem to go away. And then you end up in the breakout room. But when you exit that breakout room, it all of a sudden, at least over here, popped up a message saying, sending you back to the original meeting. So it didn't actually terminate my initial Zoom meeting. It put it in a pause or hibernate, and then it came back.
For me, like it ended my participation. Like it's like signing out of the meeting.
Wow, that's
I tried for 2 meetings before complaining here.
What's your OS again?
Linux.
He's using Ubuntu 20.04.
Okay, so maybe there's your Linux difference.
Yeah. So I'm closing all the breakout rooms. They'll be closed in 30 seconds, and then Dave and John and Scotty will come back and join the main session here. So I do hope that the posters will work out. There's actually a little bit of complication with the iPosters because they do cost money, and I do have grant money that will cover those costs, but it's not just money. There's also a bunch of bureaucracy that needs to be gotten through in order to get those iPosters set up, and the bureaucracy does not move quickly. So we're working on it. I'm really hoping we can get that pulled together.
Nathaniel, that iPoster software, is it some sort of web applet that runs on the web server?
Yes.
What is it called?
It's called it's iPoster. Whoever that link is, iPostersessions.com.
Oh, okay.
So I'm working on contracting with them now, but the process is that once you start contracting with them, like the university legal department has to review the contract, and then I have to get all the budget numbers, and that has to then be approved by the National Science Foundation.
Yes.
And these are the things that take so long.
Definition of bureaucracy.
It is very bureaucratic.
And there's reasons for it. I understand it, but still it's frustrating.
Yes. Yeah, no, I agree. There absolutely are reasons for it. So I don't want to make it sound like I don't understand their reasons for it. It's just very difficult when you're trying to there are many pressures of things that need to be done soon, and when everything takes 3 months or more to do, it becomes very difficult.
So are you done with Andy? Or you have more? Because I want to ask Dave a question.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. The other thing I wanted to say, we have a keynote speaker as well, and this was Bill Lyle's suggestion, and there's a nice tie into it. We have an expert who she has her PhD in the history of radio. Now, David Kasdan sent me this poem over the weekend called Valentine from a Telegraph Clerk. Are all of you familiar with this?
I have seen this.
You have seen this.
Not this much information, though.
No.
So, yes, here's the poem by James Clerk Maxwell, the very same theoretical physicist who brought us Maxwell's equations.
Wow.
The tendrils of my soul are twined with thine, though many mile apart, and thine in close coiled circuits wind around the needle of my heart. Constant as Daniel, strong as Grove, ebullient throughout its depths like Smee, my heart puts forth its tide of love, all of its circuits close in thee. Oh, tell me when along the line, from my full heart the message flows, what currents are induced in thine? One click from thee will end my woes. Through many an ohm the Weber flew, and clicked this answer back to me. And I am thy Farad, staunch and true, charged to a volt with love for thee.
That's not the one I saw, so that's cool.
So David Kasdan sent this to me this weekend, and so this was written by James Clerk Maxwell, and it turns out that the person who wrote this very extensive article that you are looking at here is actually our keynote speaker for the Hampshire workshop.
Oh,
Elizabeth
cool.
Bruton. So she is a curator at this Engineering and Science Museum of London, and she was suggested to me by Bill Lyles. He's friends with her. So she's got quite the biography. She's a curator of technology and engineering at the Science Museum London, specializing in the history of communications. Prominent aspects of this role include the curator of Top Secret, From Ciphers to Cybersecurity, which explored over a century's worth of communications intelligence through handwritten documents, declassified files, and previously unseen artifacts from the Science Museum's groups and GCHQ's historic collections. And so she's got quite the CV here. And so she'll be talking about the history of radio and citizen science and early radio licensing and things like that.
Very cool.
Oh, that's cool. Wireless during World War I. That's pretty unique.
Yeah. So I think it should be a really neat talk, and that'll be Friday night at 6 p.m. Eastern.
It looks pretty good. For a moment there, I thought you were going to be looking for a Hampshire poet laureate. I was getting worried.
Yeah, no, and this is so all this is listed on the website already. Mike Rahanami, he was one of my co-advisors when I was at Virginia Tech, and he's going to talk about mid-latitude ionospheric physics. And he, along with Dr. Joe Baker, they run the Super Darn group at Virginia Tech. And so they have quite an extensive amount of experience in ionospheric physics. So he'll be our professional keynote, or our professional invited tutorial speaker. So I'm calling it invited scientist tutorial and then invited amateur radio tutorial. So I think it should be good.
So much better than the adventures of Mick Farad and Millie Amp, huh?
I guess.
It never ceases to amaze me how Nathaniel gets these fantastic speakers for this conference.
Just have to ask people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to know who to ask. I mean,
Yeah, and these are not just average people. I mean, these are like, look at the resumes. I mean, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I would say 7-3s. I got to run here, so
yep.
Catch up with you all later. So everybody stay healthy.
7-3, John. So hey, before you go, do you want me to add any more pins to that? Or is that not what we need to do?
No, we don't need to add anything. I'm just curious as if I'm, locked in stone here as to what I can use or can't use.
We won't interfere with you, but we may not be able to use the pins. So.
Okay.
Is there anyone here who would be interested in doing an iPoster in addition to their talk?
We should probably have a Tangerine iPoster, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
I like the emphasis on should.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. If I get done in enough time, I'll do it. But I don't want to impact the layout or anything like that.
No.
That's
more important.
I would much rather. I'd much rather have you say, "I can't do this. I'm going to go."
I'm already behind enough as it is.
Yeah. No. Scotty? Why don't you have one of your Tapper people who's not doing this? Why don't you have them do a poster on what Tapper is?
Yeah,
that would be good.
Why don't you have some representation from the Tapper group to kind of say?
That's going to be kind of boring though, compared to Tangerine,
Well, I'm also going to have my radio club do a poster on like W3OSR, and I think I'm probably going to have Case.
Maybe Tapper would be not so boring if we were to just have a poster showing some of the previous projects that we did.
Yes, I think would be great.
Yeah, and what's nice is this stays up for all it's supposed to stay up forever. So once you have this link, you can share it with other people, and then it's something you can link to on the Tapper website, and
Yep.
and we'll have it on the Hamsci website too. So yeah, and if there are other people in Tapper who are doing other projects and they want to, show them off, these iPosters are a great way to do it.
So are you going to have some software available like you had before to do the previous posters, or was that proprietary stuff that was for that particular conference only?
I'm trying to get that exact software.
Okay.
I
thought I heard you
trick,
mention that.
yeah, I'm working on getting that exact software, and part of the reason I really need more people to do this, because it's actually, I'm going through a tremendous amount of effort to get this in place. So I really don't want to have just like 5 iPosters. I'd really like to have 25 or 50.
Is this a one-off, or do you have to, or can you use it multiple years?
You have to use it. This would be this year only.
Oh, okay.
Because you pay per poster.
Yeah.
There's a pricing scheme. So I mean, if we do it again next year, then we'd have to pay for it next year. But if we did it again next year, it may not be so complicated, because it would already have, at least if we do it through Scranton, they've already gone through an initial legal review and everything. That's what's taking
Can
so
you get
long
multiple
right now.
people collaborating on one poster?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
So you can have
absolutely.
more than one editor then of the.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be collaborative. The other trick is you're only going to get like 2 weeks to put it together. So you're going to have to do it fast. But if
Well, that's
you're
good
good at,
because I'm a procrastinator anyway, so that works for me.
it's perfect. Yeah.
Because what they say is that hard work pays off in the end, but procrastination pays off right now.
That's right. Why do you today what you can do tomorrow? Actually,
Yes.
when I was at Virginia Tech, are you guys familiar with the PhD comics, Piled Higher and Deeper?
No.
So there's a comic strip called PhD Comics, Piled Higher and Deeper. And the author of that comic strip, he would go around to universities giving lectures. And he guest lectures, and he came to Virginia Tech. And the guest lecture he'd do is called The Power of Procrastination. And so he gave a whole hour-long talk about how procrastination actually is quite a powerful tool. And if you think about it, actually, when I first started coming up with Hamsci and like the Hamsci website, I was really supposed to be writing my dissertation.
Yes.
And so Hamsci was born out of procrastination, right?
Exactly. I was putting off what I was supposed to be doing by doing this.
Well,
and look where it got me.
Procrastination is good because half the time, if you sit back and think about it, you come up with a better idea anyway. So, I mean, look at the difference between what we have today for the Tangerine and what it was in 2018 when you first made the presentation and asked us to do it. It looks totally different than what it was. And I mean, it's because of this kind of group that we all talk back and forth and come up with better ideas and substitute them for the old ideas. And it gets better and better. The only trouble is you have to learn when to stop procrastinating and just build the thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's why you need deadlines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Nathan, I have a question before you go. I heard at one time, not long ago, that they were considering a rebuild or some new version of Arecibo. Have you heard anything about that?
I've heard a little bit about it. I know they've put out some white papers on it. I know the people who are talking about doing it, but honestly, I haven't paid a lot of attention to it, not because I don't want to, just because I have been so utterly busy trying to do what I have to do. But yeah, I know I know Jim Breakall is very interested in that, and of course Angel, WP3R, and there are many people who are interested.
Procrastination came to mind in the sense that deferred maintenance probably was more cause there than you'd want to admit, whether it was procrastination or lack of resources. But it's certainly my hope to see some facility like that again.
Yeah, I agree.
On another topic, before everybody gets away, I neglected to extend my thanks to Tom McDermott for helping me with get the right signal path in the setting up of the GNU radio to run on the Grape. My mind wasn't thinking clearly. I do want to thank you, Tom, for helping with that. There's more to be done on it, but we've made a lot of progress, and Tom was instrumental in that. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that along. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much, Tom. That was a very big contribution.
Yeah, the trick is going to be figuring out to get it put into digital RF correctly, and that I'm probably going to have to work with the MIT team on that, because there's some tricks to it that my understanding of it is I would have to say superficial. So when it doesn't work, I mean, I can go in and look and see what's going on in the Python code, but I don't really know why sometimes. So
So do the people at MIT use GNU radio regularly? I would assume so, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a digital RF block available for GNU radio. I think that's what Bill's using.
So really, you need to find whoever built that or uses it extensively and say, can I do this? And if you can't, can we fix it so it can?
Well, no, I know who they are. I've actually found bugs in it before, and they fixed it for me. So I don't know whether the problem I'm having now is a bug, a feature, or something that nobody ever tried to do before. So anyway, so just to let Nathaniel know, we're making progress, but we don't have something ready to go to Antarctica just yet.
Okay, sounds good.
So Tom, have you worked out you've got answers to all your questions or the changes we need to make to the protocol to do what you wanted to do?
No, not yet. I've identified, we need to modify the HPSDR discovery response to identify where the port B is communicated back to the host from the data engine. And I think it's obvious. We just put 2 bytes after we take off the first 2 padding bytes and replace it with a port number. And so
there's 64 bytes there. We only use at least the HPSDR one doesn't use all those.
Yeah, I think it would be useful to add the struct to the documentation, but to me it's obvious where you put that port ID. I've been playing around with the sockets, and the socket library does not allow you to listen to any port. You have to bind to a particular port unless you are sudo. If you're sudo, then you can instantiate a raw socket and do all kinds of stuff. So,
but you don't want to assume that you're sudo, right?
Right. That's a pain. So we need to make sure that all of the structs are identified so that both ends know what exact port numbers are being used prior to setting up the sockets.
And the whole philosophy of it was that you can't assume that any port will be available. You have to ask for one and get one assigned.
Yeah. When I first built the sockets, I had to use a port number up above 47,000 to get Hermes to actually listen to the request.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks.
I have half of my proposal copied from Word into LaTeX already.
Very good.
And that's all while we were talking.
So Scotty, did you have another question for me?
Oh yeah. So we were talking about we can use a similar thing to HPSDR for writing and reading the memory.
Right.
I mean, if you want to be able to do that.
Right. That's what I'm planning on. The issue was understanding if there were any changes in the Max 10 versus the other Cyclone chips.
Oh, as far as being able to read and write the memory, no, it's just an IP you instantiate, and then that talks to the IP. The
only real big difference is you have 2 memories, right?
Yeah.
You can have 2 blocks of memory.
Well, are you talking about external flash or internal flash?
Well, I'm assuming it's the external flash, isn't it?
Right.
So
well,
you
yeah,
you got
yeah.
2 blocks and they flip-flop which one they run. Is that right?
Yeah, except that what I learned over the past few weeks with this contract that never seems to end is that we are probably not going to be able to use them.
Okay.
Because so there's 2 flash blocks. You could put code in either one, and then you can instruct the processor to load either one or to load one, and if it fails, then to flip-flop and load the other one.
Right.
The problem is if you have any IP, any structure in your Verilog code that requires initialized RAM, like for instance, fur filter coefficients, you have to store them somewhere. Well, guess where you store them? In the second flash.
Yes.
So now you don't have 2 pieces anymore.
So we only have 1.
So you have 2 choices. You can either make the fur filters out of RAM,
yes,
real RAM, and then in our case, since we have lots of external flash, we could theoretically put the fur filter coefficients in external flash and load them when we boot.
Yes.
Because it would be very fast. Or you have to have an external processor, which we do not have, so you can't do that. You could use an external processor to talk to the FPGA and do a memory mapped port or something and
Right.
load that way, but we don't have an external processor to do that. So we'd have to do it in a state machine internally from external flash, so that then we would have 2 images. So it's open to be able to do that. The project I was working on before had no external flash, so that was not an option to do. But we do have that option because we have a huge big hunk. In fact, we have 2 pieces of external flash. We have a serial one and a quad one. So we might even put fur coefficients in one of them and the other one for additional images, or to be determined.
So another question, the OpenHPSDR used short packets like 64 bytes. And but in an Ethernet frame, we could send a lot more in one sequence.
And I guess it would depend on how much RAM we had to buffer up.
It just, how fast can the code on the Verilog side catch it? I mean, it can catch it fast, but it's got to process it, put it somewhere.
Right, and we have a ton of RAM on this board also because we have a bunch of DDR, which again.
So we could make larger ones, and I was thinking of doing CRC checks on both each packet going through, and then a total one for the file that would check.
You could do that. In fact, you could probably buffer up an entire image in RAM and then program it if you wanted to do that. I think we have enough RAM to do that because we have like 512K bytes.
Okay.
So 512K, maybe it's bigger than that. It's I think it may be 512K bytes of flash that we have. We have a big DDR3 RAM. So.
How big are your files going to be?
Well, for a Max 10, they're only 128K bytes, I think.
Okay.
They're not that big.
In binary.
In binary, yeah. That's like an RBF file is 128K, I believe. And that's probably uncompressed, so it'll be less.
Yes.
Oh.
So at some point, I'll have to talk to you about some details. But what I'm doing is building on the OpenHPSDR model, and then figuring out that I'm going to be making changes.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to make a simulator that does everything.
But you're basing it on protocol 1 or protocol 2?
Well, right now I'm fiddling with 1, but we can work with 2. The only thing is there's some quirky stuff in 2 that is half done right.
Yeah, it is half done right. And I just want to make sure that we'll be able to plug on multiple Tangerines on one network and be able to not, to be able to handle them separately.
Yeah.
That was my whole beef with the protocol 2 Phil told me I was going to get that and I didn't. So it was my own fault. I didn't pay a lot of attention. He just assured me that was the way it worked. And then when I read it, I go, oh, that's not the way I need it to work.
one thing we can talk about is approach John Melton. Once we get the protocol right, we can ask him to implement this protocol in his gnuradio. So
Yeah, yeah. And I think he'd be interested in doing that.
yeah, I don't think it'd be hard for him either.
Yeah, because it'll be similar to protocol 2 with all the things broken fixed.
Right. So, and Tom, oh, he left. Oh no, there you are. You moved. Are there, you know, if I take that kind of approach, is there things that I gotchas in gnuradio that I need to worry about?
Probably, without seeing the protocol exactly, I don't know what they are.
Okay.
Right now, you know, I'm just trying to write the Python code to manipulate the module registers and the ASIC registers on the modules using the protocol document that Bill put together.
Okay.
So I can go out and discover the data engine, and then Bill's defined a couple of commands to.
Well, and I've been reading that protocol as well, but I'm interested in the differences between your one. You were using protocol 1, weren't you, in your previous code?
Protocol 1, right.
Okay.
Aren't the protocols that, Tom, you're going to use to read the registers off the RF module? That's probably going to be very similar to what Dave needs to do to access memory.
Yeah.
There's going to be a direct access of some piece of hardware.
Yeah, so right now, so Bill went ahead and defined a module read and a module write command, which has got a socket, you know, which says, are you talking to the module registers? And if so, is it I2C number 0, the ident ROM, or I2C number 1, or is it SPI number 0, SPI number 1? So it defines a format. So the data, you know, you can ask the data engine to go read or write the ASICs on a module and the registers on a module. I need those on the receiver to even begin to program and set up the receiver.
Okay.
So I've got a GUI program that will display all those using WX Python, and then the backend code talks to the data engine to get all that stuff.
So Dave, what are you thinking that why are you going to need to talk to memory? What's that function going to be?
So the programmer that puts your RBF into the FPGA, it has to. So you're going to have
the program memory.
Now what?
You're going to be talking to the program flash then, not just general memory.
Not just general. So you're going to have a programmer that you put in there. And what they did in the Cyclone is they put it in the low end of the memory. And then they had a high, since they didn't have a split memory, that at 1 million, they started the code for the receiver transmitter. And it would write, you'd talk to the programmer to pass those packets over.
Yeah, so what we could do in that case is we could actually put an image in external flash, and you could have a Ethernet command that goes to the main code that little piece would always reside in the main code that says, hey, go get that external piece and load that in. That's the bootloader. Right. And then you can write over wherever you wanted, because the bootloader would be an external memory.
Okay.
And you just rig it so that you couldn't program that, so you can't shoot yourself in the foot. And then
the bootloader has to always be there, or you can't. You have to go back and redo the whole chip yourself with Quartus.
But part of the problem with that is we have only one image. Then if you're going to allow the user to write over that image, then you have a problem, because it's always the case where the power goes out or something fails or you load a bogus image.
But like in protocol 1, you threw it in there, and if it didn't work, you just went back and did it again.
Okay, but did you have to put a jumper on to boot from somewhere else?
Well, essentially, the programmer was put in by you and Dan at the beginning.
Right, the bootloader you're talking about.
Yes, and then it was never touched unless somebody wiped the whole thing clean with a with
And you know, I'm not
Quartus.
really clear because you said you put the bootloader at one end of the memory and you put the real program at the other end.
And not at the other end, you put it halfway. They just
So
took the memory and split it in half.
So then how do you tell the loader if it tries to load the real image and it's bogus, it's messed up? How do you tell
Yes.
it to go back and reload the middle image?
It starts at that 1 million address.
But so does it always load 1 million and then
Yes.
the first image is good, then it reloads that?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the way the HPSDR works. Now, we don't have to work that way,
Well, we can't.
but we need to have a bootloader that runs somewhere that doesn't get erased. And then we have to have a place where we put the code that you do want to run, and it knows to start there.
I'm thinking that you're going to have to use filters in RAM and have the it load from external flash, because you need two images, because you have to have the problem is that if we put an image in external flash, there's no way to get the part to automatically load that. You have to have Verilog code to make it do that. Well, if you've blown away the Verilog code, then you can't load that, so it doesn't work. But the state machine inside the part that's hard coded will load from either of the two images.
Right.
So I think we're going to end up having to do it that way.
So we're going to take a little, after you get the board design, we're going to take a little time, but I do have a Max 10 development board like you and Dan.
Okay.
So we can try to figure that out, but I'm just saying, I want to register in your mind that we need a little bit of time this spring to figure this out.
Well, and what's going to happen is I'm going to have a base image built because I have to build it to talk to the pins to make sure that I assign the pins right. So while the guy is doing the layout, then I don't really have any hardware to do except working on that. So then we can try and build up the programmer while he's doing the layout.
Yes.
That's the first thing we're going to need, right? So,
yes, because that will put your code, whatever you're going to try in. Now you can always do it with Quartus.
Well, but you need a byte blaster or something to do that.
Yeah. So anybody who has a full Quartus can put it in themselves, but explaining that to the average ham is not very easy.
Much better to have run your program and have them program it themselves. And not
I mean, I tried to explain it to a few people and it was kind of glossed over and their eyes, they just.
Well, when the downloads are like 50 gigabytes.
Yes.
50 or 60 gig now, I think.
Several hours of downloading.
And then you have to install it all. And then you got to configure all of it. And then you got to set the programmer up. So, oh no, it's just.
But it works fine once you get it there.
Once you get it there, it's great. But getting it there is not for the faint of heart.
Yes.
So
and
I think at the beginning, we're going to have lots of variations flying fast and furious. So we got to make it really easy to change.
In all the HPSDR radios, there were a couple that were just broken hardware wise, but I only had one that that was still functioning that I couldn't fix without Quartus.
Was it just a bad Metis board?
No, the one that I couldn't fix without Metis, they blew away the bootloader.
Oh.
So I had to go and put the bootloader back in.
But once you put it back in, then it worked, right?
Then it worked.
Yeah. How did they blow away the bootloader?
They didn't realize there was a bootloader, so they put their radio program code in the 0 address.
Oh.
Wrote over the bootloader, and it worked. It worked until they wanted to update it.
Yeah, but they use the blaster to do that, right?
Yes, because a lot of people kept thinking, well, I'll use the blaster because I know what I'm doing. And that was the only one that I had to do that with. Usually, particularly in Protocol 1, it would send the stuff, no CRCs, and if there was a data error, it wouldn't work. And then basically you just do it again. And if you did it enough times, eventually one of it would work.
Well, what would happen is the dun light wouldn't come on, right? Because it'd have a bad CRC or something and it wouldn't load.
Well, there was no CRC in Protocol 1.
No, but I mean, when the FPGA loads the image,
Right.
the flash image into RAM, it checks the
Right.
CRC, and if it comes up bad, then it says, okay, I'm just going to stop. I'm not
Yes.
going to do anything, and then the light doesn't come on.
So
And-
what I want to do, and protocol 2 understood that problem, but they use checksums and not, that's it.
Okay, yeah, you
And
told
I
me
would
the
like to
CRC
use
algorithm.
like a CRC32 algorithm.
I think that's
And
easy.
I would assume we might want to use the keyword that matches gnuradio. I don't know. Or we can have our own keyword.
Whichever you want to do.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
There's,
I mean, maybe it matters to gnuradio, but it doesn't
it
matter.
matters only that both ends use the same keyword.
Yeah,
Otherwise, nothing matches.
I'm sure we can make that happen.
Yes. But I don't want to make it, having been through all this, I know there's a lot of little gotchas, and I want to try to avoid as many of those as possible.
Yeah. Good idea.
So
And I'd like to get the bootloader going as soon as we can. So
I'll be working on some form of a document, but I'll also be paying attention to Tom and Bill's documents as well.
Well, did you say you're working on a simulator?
I'm building bits of a simulator, but it don't have the whole thing built.
Okay.
So
I think we can certainly do this because I know what I did on the last project to get the remote upgrade software working. I just had
Yes.
2 pieces of code. One of them alternated the LEDs and one of them flashed them both on and off at the same time.
Right.
You could tell, did I get program A or did I get
Yes.
program B? And then you could practice loading one over the other and verify which one you were actually booted, which one booted.
now,
And
Dan, do you know all that? I'm not, he's mute.
Muted.
Okay, yes. Answer the question, yes.
So you can be my tester.
I can be your tester.
And you have one of those DE boards, right? Well, I mean, one of those, the ones like Dave and I have.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, remember we bought one.
Yeah, we all bought one at the same time.
Well, I know we bought one for iQuad, but I don't remember if you bought one also, Dan.
Yes.
Okay, so we all 3 have them. Okay, good.
Yes.
We did that about 5 months ago.
Yeah, are you kidding? I
But-
can't remember 2 days ago.
Recent.
The problem is we each have bits and pieces of it, but we need to get all on the same page about it.
Yes. Pick the same CRC bits, right?
Well, and how where we're going to put things in memory and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's also, well, it doesn't really matter because the programming you're going to do is going to be to program flash
Right.
memory. But we have.
So the Verilog programmer part is what will decide the actual addresses.
Right. And the external flash, I mean, I'm not sure what we're going to use that for yet, but you know, if we make it available to the Ethernet port,
yes,
then we're going to have some way to manage the memory blocks or something,
right,
so that we don't get blocks assigned to 2 people at the same time. And I haven't even gotten that far ahead yet.
But
so
I'm putting a bug in your head so that while you're working, you can think about it.
good. I need more things to think about.
Now, Bill, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, my exposure to working with flashing stuff and I've done a little bit of it, but it's been a long time, so
Yeah.
just going to have to relearn the technology again.
Right. So I think based on that we have one, a working example that we know has issues, but it's working. We can have a starting point.
And we know what the issues are to fix. So
Yes. So
all right.
Sounds good.
We need hardware. ASAP.
Well, I kind of need to go, but
Yeah.
I have a question I'd like to raise.
Oh, sure.
Before everybody gets away here. I have a script that installs a new version of, like an updated version of Python. It installs, it tries to install gnuradio. And the issue I have is this. In order to install gnuradio, I have to have a version of PyBind 11 greater than 2.4.2. And the Raspberry Pi uses 2.2.4. So I can build a new version of PyBind without a problem. I can do whatever the latest version is. The issue I have is I not only need PyBind 11, I need PyBind 11-dev, and I need Python-PyBind 11. And I'm a little stuck on exactly how I can derive that from my PyBind compiled code. Anybody have any ideas on how that works?
I don't know. PyBind's beyond my,
Well,
I haven't
what
paid
happened
much
was,
attention to that.
In the last version of gnuradio, raising it from 3.8 to
Right.
3.9, they now use PyBind instead of Swig.
Yeah.
After using Swig since day one, they abandoned it and went to something different.
Right.
And the issue I have is that the Raspberry Pi OS hasn't really caught up.
Yes.
With PyBind. They're still operating.
PyBind allows you to call C++ routines from Python, if I remember.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Is there a package, is there a Debian package available for the latest PyBind?
I don't think so. I don't think so. No, it might be. You know, I really didn't look at Debian packages. I looked at source code, and I can build it from source code without a problem.
But the issue is you have other code that uses several different versions of PyBind.
Probably, but I don't think that's a big issue. I think it's pretty much backward compatible.
Okay.
Now, Python is not really. I mean, it sort of is.
Well,
but, yeah. Yeah, and the problem I have with Python, using Python and PyBind, is that they don't play very well together. So unless you have the absolute latest version of Python code, which is 3.9.1, and the latest version of PyBind 11 code, which I think is 2.6.2 or whatever, they won't play. You have to have the very latest version of both in order for them to work correctly. But that's not the issue. The issue is, how do I generate my other two files? Because the make file actually specifies that it has to be a version greater than, or it just stops running.
Yeah.
It returns an error too, and that's the end of the deal. So, and that actually, what it does, it doesn't query the PyBind 11 file, it queries the PyBind 11-dev file to see what version is the latest installed version. So anyway, just a little bit of a mess right now.
Is that a problem that occurs in the build script, Dan?
It's a problem with the build script, yes, but it's not really a problem with the build script. I mean, it's doing exactly what it has to do. It's a problem with the build script looking for versions which are not installed on the system.
Yeah, I mean, this business of versions really is nightmarish. In order to get gnuradio to run on this version of I guess this particular version of the Ubuntu I have running on the Pi, I had to actually go in there and hard code something in gnuradio because it was choking on a version number, and I knew it to be compatible, so I just had to go and change gnuradio in this one area to to handle it, to accept the version. That's, yeah. I mean, if you're using anything, if you're doing anything but the most simplest stuff, you're going to get into these situations. I'm finding out.
Well, I've been trying to use the Raspberry Pi OS operating system. If I switch to Ubuntu 20.04 for the Raspberry Pi, I think I can make it work because that actually has the correct level of PyBind 11 in it.
Well, that is what I concluded as well, and that's why I switched over from using that Raspbian or whatever it is that comes with the Pi and just installing Ubuntu 20. I think it's 20.10 is what I'm running.
Yeah, 20.10 is what I have.
Okay, so I'll do that. I can do that. If we can change OSs, I can write a script that'll work.
Yeah, I don't see any real reason to stick with Raspbian. Ubuntu, the canonical version of Ubuntu seems to me it's nicer anyway. It looks a little bit more polished. It has more things available. So I don't know.
Yeah, the only thing I have against it is the user base isn't nearly as large.
No.
I mean, the nice thing about the Raspberry Pi OS user base is it's ubiquitous. Everybody that has a Pi uses it, or almost everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will take it, I'll look at it from a little different perspective. That is a perspective of changing the OS to a whole different OS.
Just bear in mind, you might have to make changes to gnuradio so it doesn't choke on the version number.
Okay.
What I had to do.
Now, are you using gnuradio 3.9?
I don't believe.
The latest and greatest, or are you using 3.8.2?
Well, let me take a look.
Okay.
I've got a quick question. I just looked at the Raspberry Pi site and there was a new release in January. Is that the version you're running?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm running gnuradio 3.8.2.
Oh, well, I don't have that problem with 3.8.2. 3.8.2 compiles perfectly. So, okay.
Yeah, I've been holding off on porting to 3.9 because I don't think it's quite ready for prime time porting yet.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
So, I mean, maybe that you ought to settle on one version that's working and we can upgrade later.
Well, they come out with a new version every 6 months, so
yeah, they aren't minor changes.
Evolutionary environment.
Yeah, I think 3.9 may be the last big one for a little while. You were on 3.6 for probably 5 years, on 3.7 for maybe 6 years, and then all of a sudden 3.8, 3.9. And that's where all the plumbing got changed and was going over to 3.9. So I have a feeling if the frustration on the mailing list is any indication, there's a lot of cleanup work to be done first.
Well, I mean, they changed the way that Volk was invoked, and that made a big, big mess.
Yeah.
They seem to have gotten past that. So hopefully they'll get past the latest issues.
They'll get there, but there's a lot of moving pieces in gnuradio.
Yes.
And a lot of folks, are really having difficulty porting their modules to it.
Yes.
And I just think that there's a long time period for many of those issues to settle out first. I think it's much longer in 3.9 than it was in 3.8.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to need to go.
Okay.
So I'm going to say 73, and I don't want to, if you guys want to talk more, that's fine.
I think, well, I'm talked out.
Thank you, Dave. Also.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
73 all. Thanks.